Hello and welcome everyone to the Party Animal Podcast, episode number 11, 21st birthday. I'm Thomas.
And I am Luna, speaking clearly and slowly. And thank you for joining us for what is going to be a crucial conversation about a really pivotal moment in many young adults' lives.
Absolutely, yeah. Today we are zeroing in on the significance of the 21st birthday milestone. It is, this universal symbol, particularly here in the United States, of finally achieving the legal ability to consume alcohol.
Right. It's a huge deal.
It is. But it's far more than just a legal formality. It's a point where the expectations of celebration collide quite violently with the physiological and social realities of intoxication.
That's a great way to put it.
We want to spend this time taking a really in-depth look at those crucial safety lessons that are often learned the absolute hardest way with this specific celebration.
That's right. And for this exploration, our mission is focused not just on surface warnings, but on synthesizing some powerful, specific insights from the compiled material regarding the risks and, much more importantly, the responsibilities that truly come with stepping across this threshold into legal adulthood.
Right.
We are going to use a specific narrative example to ground this discussion because sometimes, seeing the sequence of events happen, even in a story form, makes the underlying mechanisms of risk stick in your mind.
Yeah, it makes it real.
It does. And that is so incredibly important for preventative action.
Facts. And that narrative centers around a young woman named Mia.
Okay.
She was in lively Salt Lake City, Utah, eagerly anticipating this enormous day. She was excited, like so many young people are, to finally be able to join the vibrant nightlife scene that had always been just slightly out of reach.
That feeling of being on the outside looking in.
Exactly. That energy, that feeling of being a part of something big, that was the explicit goal that night. Okay, let's unpack the cultural setup here. Because the 21st birthday, as we said, it's not just another birthday.
Not at all.
It's this huge, almost mythic cultural event.
It's imbued with immense social pressure.
Totally. Mia's friends, they didn't plan a quiet dinner. They planned an extravagant celebration for her. The setup was textbook.
Of course.
A huge night out, venue hopping, right in the heart of the city. There was a clear, unspoken intention to truly indulge and revel in that newfound legal status.
Yeah, that description, the extravagance, the anticipation, it perfectly captures the high expectations she felt. She wasn't just planning a party.
No.
She was planning an immersion into adulthood, as defined by cultural norms. She imagined herself dancing the night away, surrounded by laughter and this incredible joyous spirit.
Completely free of consequence.
Exactly. But what's so compelling and what the collected material really forced us to look at is that immediate shift right away. The pivot from that anticipation, that almost fairy tale expectation, to the physiological reality that excess brings within a matter of minutes.
And, even amidst all that buildup, there were those essential whispers of caution, which, as we noted, are often the hardest things to hear when the music is loudest.
Always.
The material highlights that her parents, aware of the inherent risks that come with high-volume alcohol consumption, they had shared specific stories about the potential dangers, trying to make the abstract feel real.
They tried to ground it for her.
They did. They really emphasized prioritizing her physical well-being, making responsible choices, and the absolute necessity of looking out for herself and her friends.
This is where we start to analyze that fascinating psychological tension. It's the core conflict between the raw excitement of that newfound freedom.
Yeah, that I'm finally an adult feeling.
Right. I can make my own choices. This is my moment. And that quiet, internalized sense of caution, that voice of parental wisdom.
That you just want to ignore.
You really do. And the data suggests that young adults often dismiss these warnings, not because they're inherently reckless, but because the immediate social reward,
It's thrill.
the pure acceptance, the immediate gratification, it often completely overwhelms the logical, abstract concept of risk in that moment. That sense of invincibility that young adults feel, especially when transitioning into new legal freedoms, just pushes that parental foresight straight to the background.
That's a great point. How do you make the risk feel real when the reward feels so immediate and tangible?
You almost can't.
And unfortunately, Mia, like so many others, found herself totally swept up in that intoxicating thrill. She succumbed to the pressures of her friends and that overwhelming exhilaration of finally being legally allowed to participate. The narrative is incredibly stark in its description, detailing that period of rapid succession.
The dangerous part.
Yes. Shot after shot, drink after drink, leading her deeper into fast, overwhelming intoxication.
That rapid succession of drinks, we can't overstate how critical that is. It accelerates the blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, almost instantly.
Way faster than people realize.
Way faster. It leads to a much quicker and more profound loss of control than if drinks were spread out. As the night wore on, the material notes that her inhibitions faded, which is the goal of many celebrations, of course.
Right, to loosen up a bit.
But, crucially, her judgment became totally clouded. This rapid escalation is the moment the atmosphere shifts dramatically.
It's like the switch flips.
It does. That vibrant, joyful energy gave way to a growing sense of vulnerability and acute discomfort. She found herself surrounded by people who were suddenly strangers, losing track of time, losing track of her safe people.
It became physically overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, the party stops being fun immediately when your body starts betraying you.
Yeah.
And you realize you're floating adrift in a sea of people you no longer trust, right?
Exactly. The shift is palpable and immediate.
Okay, let's talk about that moment, the transition from celebration into true crisis.
Yeah.
The analysis describes the precarious situation Mia found herself in. This wasn't just a physical sickness, it was mental panic.
She was disoriented, and, most terrifyingly, she was unsure of how she had arrived at the location she was currently at, or, critically, how to find her way back to any semblance of safety.
And this is the sudden, frightening realization that we want every listener to pay attention to.
Please do.
That moment when the initial high wears off just enough for the adrenaline and the panic to kick in, where you realize your safety has been fundamentally compromised.
Yeah, maybe you left your phone. Maybe you lost your wallet.
Or you simply cannot remember the name of the place you were just at or who you were talking to.
Terrifying.
That extreme disorientation, that feeling of utter helplessness, is incredibly dangerous and often precedes accidents or serious vulnerability.
That's why the next step in Mia's story is so essential, the essential intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness she had maintained enough presence of mind or managed to make a quick connection with her support network.
Just enough.
She managed to reach a close friend who, thankfully, was sober enough and concerned enough for her well-being that they came immediately to her aid.
That friend is, without question, the true central figure in this cautionary narrative.
The hero of the story.
Absolutely. This highlights the immediate life-saving value of having a reliable, sober contact, a supportive network that you plan for in advance.
Before you even leave the house.
Yes. The ability to rely on someone who has maintained their presence of mind, their judgment, is paramount. They helped Mia extricate herself from that physically risky situation and get back to the familiar comforts of home safely.
Yeah.
That, in essence, is what responsible celebration planning looks like. It's having that designated person and that prearranged safety protocol.
And in the days that followed, Mia had to confront those consequences. We're talking about more than just a physical hangover.
Oh, much more.
It was the intense psychological weight of what happened. She felt this deep, profound sense of gratitude for her friend's intervention. But it was coupled with the stark realization that the extreme risks she had taken could have led to far, far more severe.
Potentially lifelong consequences.
Precisely. And that became the turning point, making her 21st birthday an undeniable lesson rather than just a fun memory.
Right. It redefined the day for her.
It did. She made a vow, according to what we read, to fundamentally prioritize responsible drinking going forward and, critically, to surround herself with a network of friends who genuinely valued her well-being above immediate indulgence.
That's a huge step.
This experience became the perfect cautionary tale for young adults, stressing that the celebration of milestones, no matter how exciting or culturally mandated, must never compromise personal safety.
That commitment to self-preservation is the core message here.
It really is. Mia's experience is a microcosm of three major points outlined in the material we reviewed. First, the speed of intoxication when celebratory pressure is applied. Second, the typical failure of the impromptu buddy system. And third, the critical reliance on a single, sober contact.
Well said.
Okay, now that we have that powerful personal story grounding us in the reality of the risks, let's pivot and move from Mia's specific narrative to the generalized, tangible risks that are consistently outlined and analyzed in the information we reviewed.
Right. And we can start with the most obvious, but often the least understood element of these celebrations. Risk number one, which is excessive alcohol consumption.
Also known as binge drinking.
Particularly defined as binge drinking.
Exactly.
For our listeners who are preparing for a meeting or just trying to quickly catch up on the specifics, it's vital to define this term because it's frequently misunderstood.
Okay, so what's the clinical definition?
Binge drinking is generally defined as consuming 4 or more standard drinks for a woman or 5 or more standard drinks for a man in approximately 2 hours.
In 2 hours. That specific time frame is key.
It is.
Because the material points out that the cultural phenomenon surrounding the 21st birthday often revolves around rapid, high-volume consumption.
Yeah.
The infamous 21 shots challenge, or equivalent fast drinking games.
Oh, yeah.
This core celebratory behavior, especially during the 21st celebrations, means people are hitting those dangerous BAC levels almost instantaneously.
And the immediate consequences, which go far beyond a bad hangover, are what we must emphasize. We're talking about severely impaired judgment, obviously, but also life-threatening physiological dangers.
Like alcohol poisoning.
Particularly alcohol poisoning, yes. We need to look for specific indicators of acute risk. Irregular or slow breathing, pale or bluish skin.
That's hypothermia.
Hypothermia, yes. Seizures or difficulty remaining conscious. These are not signs of just being too drunk. They are signs of a life-threatening medical emergency requiring immediate professional intervention.
You cannot just let them sleep it off.
You must not assume the person will sleep it off. That can be a fatal mistake.
Exactly. And beyond that immediate crisis, there's the subtle long-term danger.
Mm-hmm.
The information we have points out that frequent heavy drinking, especially if this celebratory pattern becomes a continued habit in the post-21 environment, can result in serious long-term health consequences.
Yeah, this is the part people don't think about on the night.
No. Specifically, chronic issues like liver damage, cardiovascular issues, and perhaps most insidiously, laying the psychological and physical groundwork for alcohol dependence.
Right.
It highlights how quickly one night of fun can potentially shift into a serious lifelong health struggle if the pattern is repeated.
That speed of transition is terrifying. And here's where it gets really interesting, because risk number 2 flows directly from that rapid intoxication.
Impaired judgment and decision-making.
Exactly. We know alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, but its greatest danger often lies in how it fundamentally alters executive function.
So what does that mean in simple terms?
We are talking specifically about how alcohol temporarily shuts down or impairs the prefrontal cortex, which is the region of the brain responsible for foresight, planning, moral reasoning, and impulse control.
So it's not just that you make a bad choice. It's that the very mechanism in your brain designed to prevent bad choices is temporarily deactivated.
That's a perfect way to describe it. The data emphasizes the direct link between that impairment and risky behaviors and poor decision-making that can cause harm to oneself or others. Sociologists point out that this is when young people are most likely to engage in unnecessary physical confrontations, or, less dramatically but still seriously, make spontaneous financial or legal decisions.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Like signing contracts, agreeing to large purchases, or even committing property damage that they would never consider when sober.
Wow.
That's right. When judgment is compromised, a person might, for instance, think they are perfectly capable of walking home alone through an unfamiliar area.
A huge risk.
Or sharing unnecessarily sensitive personal information with strangers, or making choices that simply don't align with their core values. The discussion moves beyond just the individual's safety. It includes the potential harm to others that arises from that lowered impulse control and decreased ability to read social cues accurately.
Yeah.
It can lead to severe legal and social fallout, which is often magnified because of the celebratory context.
And this brings us right to risk number 3, which is tragically serious and often fatal.
Yeah.
Drunk driving.
Yes.
If a celebration involves moving between venues or ending the night back at home, transportation is key. The analysis emphasizes this is a serious public safety risk that requires not just awareness, but critical pre-planned preventative measures.
Absolutely essential. What we found is that the statistical risk for the 21 to 25 age demographic is significantly higher than older populations.
Why is that?
Partly because of inexperience with intoxication and partly due to social habits. The conversation must move beyond the simple warning of don't drink and drive.
It has to be deeper.
It has to. We need to discuss the legal liabilities. For instance, depending on the state, there can be repercussions, even for sober passengers, if they knowingly get into a vehicle with an intoxicated driver.
Wow, that's a death most people don't consider.
Not at all.
And the cost of that poor decision, if someone is caught, is staggering.
Oh, it's huge.
We are talking about astronomical legal fees, increased insurance rates that last for years, required community service, and of course the potential criminal record that follows you for life.
Yeah.
The preventative measures mentioned are straightforward, thankfully. utilizing safe transportation options, such as designated drivers who remain completely sober.
Completely sober, not just the least drunk.
Right. Or planning to use ride-sharing services that are paid for before the night begins.
Precisely. You shouldn't be negotiating with yourself or your friends about transportation when everyone is already intoxicated.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
Making that plan before the first drink is the definition of mature responsibility. It's an investment in your future and in the safety of everyone else on the road.
That focus on foresight is interesting because it was pointed out that the social media pressure surrounding the 21st birthday often works against that planning, turning it into a competition of excess, making foresight seem uncool or overly cautious.
Right, like you're ruining the fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, risk number 4 is something Mia directly faced: personal safety and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Intoxication inherently increases vulnerability to predatory behavior, and the research specifically cites risks like theft or, far more tragically, assault.
Which includes sexual assault.
Yes, this is a critical discussion point.
It is. When a person is deeply intoxicated, they are less aware of their surroundings, less physically capable of defending themselves, and less able to make quick, rational decisions to evade danger.
You become an easy target.
You do. Predators look for signs of isolation and impairment, and a person who is alone, visibly stumbling, or struggling to communicate is a clear target.
So what's the strategy to counter that?
The mitigation strategy outlined in the analysis is simple but demands active commitment. The importance of awareness and maintaining strong, supportive group dynamics.
It has to be an active buddy system, right? Not just saying, oh yeah, we're together.
Exactly. That's a passive buddy system, and it fails.
It means making sure that if one friend leaves the table, another friend goes with them. It means checking in frequently and making sure everyone gets home safely.
All the way inside.
Seeing them physically inside their doors. Sticking together turns vulnerability into strength, but only if the group is sober enough to execute the plan.
Absolutely. The moment one person gets isolated, the risk profile explodes exponentially.
Okay, so that leads to risk number 5, accidents and injuries.
Right. This is the physical danger we often overlook until it happens. The research clearly states that falls, injuries, and general accidents are far more likely when intoxication is present because it affects not just cognitive function,
That's also your body.
but also motor skills, balance, and depth perception.
And here's a detail from medical studies that often gets overlooked. Alcohol dramatically lowers pain perception.
Oh, that's a really good point.
This means someone can suffer a serious injury, a sprained ankle, a head injury from a fall, and because their nervous system is dulled by alcohol, they might not realize the severity of the injury until hours later when the alcohol wears off.
And by then, it's much worse.
That delay in seeking medical attention can turn a recoverable injury into a much more serious medical crisis.
That's a powerful point. Simple, practical safety steps can mitigate some of the harm.
Like what?
Well, the advice is, beyond just monitoring consumption, staying hydrated, alternating alcohol with water,
Always a good idea.
and maintaining a safe environment. That means actively avoiding situations where physical risk is already high, like climbing onto precarious balconies, walking near busy traffic, or swimming. Yeah, just using common sense. Just generally being mindful of your physical surroundings because your physical senses are compromised.
And finally, risk number 6 taps into the psychological aspects that often follow a night of heavy drinking: mental and emotional well-being. Alcohol doesn't just make you physically clumsy, it can intensely amplify emotional vulnerability and wild mood swings. Many people refer to this as hangxiety.
That's a key recognized phenomenon now. Alcohol heavily influences neurotransmitter activity.
Okay, break that down for us.
It initially boosts GABA, which is the brain's main inhibitory neurotransmitter, providing that feeling of relaxation and euphoria.
The good feel.
The good feeling. But as the alcohol wears off, the brain compensates by spiking excitatory neurotransmitters like glutamate, resulting in a severe rebound effect.
And that is the hangxiety.
That is the anxiety, the regret, the depression, and the sleeplessness the next day. The recommendation here is promoting emotional stability through balanced celebrations and, again, ensuring that supportive environment is present.
So your starting mood matters.
Immensely. If you go into the night already feeling stressed or slightly down, alcohol can intensify those feelings into a psychological emergency. The goal should be true: lasting happiness, not chemically induced, temporary euphoria that comes with a heavy emotional debt later on.
So we've laid out the specific dangers, from immediate physical crises like alcohol poisoning to long-term health risks to severe legal and emotional consequences. And what they tell us is this: the ultimate lesson on the eve of 21 is that you must tread the path of celebration wisely. The research provides this very evocative warning. The allure of freedom can entwine with risks that linger long after the candles have been blown.
It is powerful language, but it is accurate because it addresses the true cost. Responsibility is the foundation of true freedom. If you are responsible for your actions and your safety, you truly maximize the joy and minimize the potential for lasting negative impact.
It's about actually remembering the night fondly.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from merely surviving the night to actually enjoying and remembering the milestone in a positive light.
It is often in those moments of isolation, like Mia experienced, that the cost of excess is truly calculated. And that feeling, that's what this information wants us to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to our final thought for you to mull over. We've talked extensively about designated drivers, hydration, and sticking together, which are obviously critical safety measures.
They are the basics.
But if the goal of the 21st birthday is truly to celebrate freedom in adulthood, what specific actions, beyond just choosing a designated driver, demonstrate a truly mature and responsible approach to this milestone event?
That's a great question.
What is the cost? Not just in dollars, but in personal dignity, reputation, and emotional fallout of a celebration that results in needing external intervention, like Mia did. Is that really celebrating freedom, or is it celebrating a momentary lack of self-control? Something to think about as you navigate this new chapter.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What are your opinions and experiences regarding celebrating milestones responsibly? Please share them in the comments section below.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Party Animal Podcast. Make sure to check back in for future episodes, and please click that like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe to help this podcast bring more awareness to others while enjoying an amazing time minus the pitfalls.
Be safe out there.